Tom Summers. I will be running the Western States 100 Endurance Run this coming Saturday, June 26th. And so in this video, I want to basically tell you a little bit about how I got to into the Western States 100, as well as how I'm doing in my training and am I prepared to complete this challenge. So first off, my interest in running the Western States 100 goes way back to 2011 when I ran the JFK 50 miler in Boonesboro, Maryland. That was my first distance over a marathon distance. And it just so happened that at the time it was a qualifier for the Western States 100. So I put in my application to the lottery. Of course, I didn't get it. The following year, I ran the JFK 50 a second time and put in my application. But the third year, I missed the registration period. And so I lost all my tickets. But not only that, but the Western States 100, they changed their qualifying races so the JFK 50 was no longer a qualifier. And so basically, if I wanted to run the Western States 100, I would need to run a 100 miler. So I put an application in to the Vermont 100 for July of 2015. And I was able to complete that race in a time of 22 hours, or more than 22 hours. And I was able to put another application into the Western States 100. When I crossed the finish line of the Vermont 100, I knew I was going to run another 100. And I was pretty much set to run the Vermont 100 again the following year. The following year I did it as a solo runner. But as a solo runner, I ran a little slower in a time of a little over 25 hours. So I got to experience a full day of running. That was a new experience for me. And I knew I would want to continue running ultras. I put another application in the Western States 100, and again, I did not get it. The following year, I wanted to try and do a trail marathon. So I signed up for a trail ultra. So I signed up for the Arkansas Traveler. But shortly after I signed up, my sister chose to get married on that same day. So I couldn't do both. So I went to my sister's wedding and canceled the race. But not before I tried to find another qualifying race for the Western States 100. And it just so happened that the Javelina 100 was available, was open for registration. So I entered into the Javelina 100. And I was able to finish that. And again, at a time of 25 hours, a little over 25 hours. Now, the following year, I wanted to run a race that was a little earlier in the year. So if something goes wrong, I would have another opportunity later in the year for a Western States qualifier. So I chose the Zion 100. And during the winter training, I ended up getting injured and I couldn't run the Zion. So again, I had to wait until the summer to start my training, and I entered into the Javelina 100 a second time. And this time I finished actually in a little faster time than my previous year in running the Javelina. But there's a very interesting story of what happened with my injury, and I plan to tell that in a future video. So I was able to transfer my entry for the Zion 100 to the following year, 2019, and I ran the Zion 100. And just to let you know that race was quite difficult. I ran it in a time of over 32 hours, 32:20 or something like that. I will say I did get lost for a bit, flying monkey, so that was part of the reason. But the other thing is it was just not my day of running. I struggled mightily, and I don't think it was necessarily training as much as it was it was just a bad day for me. but I was able to finish and get a qualifier in for the Western States. And that was all I needed. That this following December, they had a lottery and I was um, chosen to run the Western States 100. So now I want to go into how my training has been going. Okay, so now I want to go over a little bit about how my training has been going. I believe this is the best training I've had since starting 100-mile races. I usually get to a point where I run up to 35 miles. That'll be my max distance. I'll do that once. And then at that point, I'll start tapering for the race itself. But this time, I was able to have a really solid base, and I got up to running about 30 miles um, in January this year. And then I just slowly increased those miles. In between these 30s, I usually did about a marathon distance on 26 miles. I started doing a few back to back. As I got into April, I started running the 35 miles. And then on the alternate weeks, I did a 20 back to back marathon distance. But it all didn't go really smoothly. I felt this, the 36 mile that I did in April was a little, wasn't too bad. I got to about the 35-mile distance, and then the wheels came out the wagon, and I struggled a bit to get that last 1.22. Other than that, it was pretty good. The day was about 70 degrees, maybe 75 was the high. So that was pretty decent. These 35 miles, I think, were just typical 35-mile days where I finished feeling okay, nothing major. The 35 miler that I ran on 5/23 last May was, I'd say the high got up to about 80. There's a little bit of shade, but on that run, I struggled a bit in the heat. The heat got to me a little bit, but wasn't too bad. And then on June 5th, that was when I ran the 36 miles. And high temperature for the day was about 90 degrees. So it was a hot day. I felt it. I ran out of water twice. So I think that had an impact where I was at the point where I was struggling pretty bad. It was actually about mile 23, believe it or not. I was able to overcome that, get some fluids in me, and continue on in the heat. But I was able to run in the heat. If you see here, it started at 11 a.m. So I ran in the heat pretty much all day, from 11 to 7 at night. So I'm hoping that helped me. So speaking of heat, I know that as of today, I believe they're anticipating the high temperature to be 101 degrees. They actually reduced it from 106 or 108. So that's going to be a challenge. I know that, but I have been training in the heat. It wasn't just that 36 miles. I would pick my training runs during the week to run at the hottest part of the day. And I tried to just drink water, a lot of water, so that my body can learn to sweat, I guess, more efficiently or quicker. And also to try and get platelets, my platelet count increased. I believe that helps cool you down. So my body is a little more trained for the heat. So we'll see how that goes. I do anticipate that they'll have ice. And so in addition to hopefully the benefits I've gotten from the heat training, I can use the ice. So that's how I stand. I think I am in pretty good shape. I think I'm in 24-hour shape. However, being that how hot it's going to be, I'm going to give those extra 6 hours to 30 hours to the heat if I have to. So that's my story. I plan to do an additional video on some of my experiences through the years of getting to the Western States. So I hope you tune back in to hear those. Thanks.
Ow! Ow! Can't do that. I won't look at it.